I see your smiling face.
It's so nice to see you. Hello, I'm Alexis Brink, and it's a privilege to be with Fanita English and Marian Weisberg. And Marian, thank you very much for making this happen. And you've known Fanita a long time. How long have you known her?
Well, I think Fanita and I met 50 years ago, and we have been friends. We have been fellow travelers. We have been intellectual companions. She has been my mentor and teacher. And I'm wanting to honor this long friendship that we've had and ask Fanita at this point of time to share with us about her life and her work. So please, Fanita.
Thank you. So Fanita, let's jump right in. How did you get to transactional analysis?
I got to be a psychologist by signing up at the Sorbonne in France. But that I would be a psychologist only after the war. I couldn't be a psychologist during the war because the Germans were running this. The first thing is that I decided I could be, I went to the Institute for Psychoanalysis in New York.
Oh, it's right near here.
By now I'm in New York, and I was working as a secretary at the Brazilian commercial attaché to earn a living. The issue about earning a living is also important. Could hire somebody in America even though I wasn't an American citizen, because I couldn't get a job. I didn't have the right to work as an American citizen.
Right.
So I was, I needed to earn my living. I wanted to get a master's degree in America, in psychology I went to the Institute of Psychoanalysis, and they told me, well, in America, you can have to be a psychiatrist in order to be a psychoanalyst. And I said, but that's not so in Austria, where Freud worked, who specifically said, you don't have to be. You can be a
psychiatrist or medical doctor.
Non-medical doctor. So you keep coming up with places where they say you can do this under certain circumstances, but not under other circumstances. Anyway, I said, well, but Freud said that you could get to be. All right, reluctantly they said, yes, you can finish your training. I hadn't finished my training in psychoanalysis in France.
Okay.
They said, okay, we'll accept you for training, which means training and practicing in the meantime. You practice as a trainee, and you can charge low fees, but you can charge and practice. Yeah.
So that's when you started to practice the
psychoanalysis.
And then
I found it boring as hell.
Yeah.
After all, I had lived a pretty interesting life so far. And sitting there listening to some woman who would talk about the fact that this was before women's liberation. It's very hard for you to imagine that. This was the time of the bored housewife. So I'd sit there to some wealthy bored housewife complaining about her husband. And she enjoyed doing that because it was better than not complaining she'd get. I didn't realize that, but it was strokes. She gets strokes about being such a good sport and allowing me, her analyst, to stroke her and to tell me what was hard type she was having with her selfish husband.
And that's so, but you didn't know about strokes yet. I mean, strokes is a TA concept.
Yes, but Strokes is a TA concept, but strokes is, I was using a TA, I didn't know TA at the time.
Mhm.
I didn't even know anything about TA, but I could understand that somehow this woman preferred coming and talking to me and listening to me than being home washing the dishes or
And
whatever.
so you didn't find that satisfying, I guess, for you.
No,
It was
no.
kind if you have
But
10
we needed the money. My
right,
husband was starting a magazine at the time in Chicago, and I used to look at the clock up there and think of how. Oh yes, it's 50. It's a 50 minutes. All right, it's another.
so how did you then, I mean, I guess you started to think that you wanted to find another way. So is that when you found
Yes, I
trans
started actually. I started looking at the uh, group group practice, which seemed a little bit more interesting. There was a group in Maine that was doing group therapy.
We're talking right now probably about the early 60s
yeah?
as a time when Eric Berne started to step forward and we started to become familiar
Yes,
with
yes.
some of the TA concepts at that time.
Yeah, that's
And
right. I
you
got a degree. I did get a degree in social work at Bryn Mawr.
right.
How did you get to Eric Berne? How did you meet him?
Yeah, how did I get? Well, I was a social worker. I practiced as a social worker, and I belonged to a small group of social workers in private practice who did some form of group therapy. Um, and I was not enjoying my psychoanalytic practice, but it was paying well. So that was okay. And I was always talking to our group about how boring psychoanalysis was. And the social workers were not considering that boring. They considered that that was a step above social work. And one day he hands me a little paperback book and he says, there's this book I picked up. He just came back from San Francisco. This was in Chicago. Says there's this book I picked up at the San Francisco airport. And I find it pretty boring, but it's just the kind of stuff that you're talking about. That there's another way of working than psychoanalytic practice. And the name of the guy who wrote it is Eric Berne. So you might as well have it. I'd just as soon throw it away. Okay. So he gave me the book and I read it. Wow. And I became fascinated. So it's Eric Book's first book, TA in Psychotherapy,
Mhm.
which is an excellent book that I still recommend.
Think
So
about it.
what was it about TA psychotherapy? What's particularly stood out for you that really caught your interest after all these boring years?
Years and other years of
Yeah.
group therapy and all kinds of others.
And
And
what was it
stuff.
about? Was it like strokes? Was it ego states? Was it the okay life positions? Was there anything in particular that really resonated with you?
Yes, I think what resonated first of all was strokes, and
Strokes.
realized that my psychoanalytic practice consisted in my giving strokes, and it was maddening. But his whole approach, I don't know whether he mentioned contracts in that book, but I think I don't know, you're shaking your head.
I don't think he did that early, but I'm not sure. But
She did
was
mention
very important
something.
to you, however, correct?
Yeah.
Is a bedrock notion of TA.
Yeah.
Uh,
But he did mention the idea that we need to figure out why we're meeting and what are we meeting for. It wasn't exact, maybe he didn't use the word contracts, but that it made sense to say what are we meeting for, what are we trying to accomplish, why are we discussing this. And our meetings should make sense.
Yeah, that was to me also very important as a different kind of way of practicing, because you had a goal that you shared together, that we were
Yeah.
working together rather than
Yeah.
the doctor-patient one up, one down relationship. And after all those years in psychoanalysis, that must have been very refreshing for you.
Yes. And by the way, we called him or her client and not patient,
Yes.
which was another way of changing the whole relationship between the therapist and the client.
Could you say something about when you did meet Eric Berne, and there was something that you told me about, was that he had cured you of a writing block. Is that correct?
Yes, but that's much later.
Much-
That's after that's after I got my teaching membership.
So between the time that you first started in TA and then got your teaching membership, what was it that you started to do differently? How did you start to practice? How did you start to think about practice then, after that time?
The big star for me was Kupfer. And without
Yeah.
Kupfer, I wouldn't have remained in TA. So I had a very, I called Eric Berne out of Chicago. And I was so enchanted by that book, EATA in Psychotherapy, that I called the association out of Chicago to San Francisco, expecting that I'd get a secretary or something like that. But lo and behold, I got Berne on the telephone. He answered the phone and he said, Eric Berne here. And oh, I was flabbergasted. I said, do you ever come to Chicago? And he said, well, as a matter of fact, I'm due to come to Chicago through Chicago next week because I'm going to New York. I said, well, would you be interested in working with a group of our group? He said, well, yes, if you'll pay my hotel room with a $50 fee. And I'll stay overnight, yes. Yes, I'll meet with you. I'm willing to do that. So we made the arrangements over the phone, just like that. Very, very practical.
How did Eric Berne show up when he came to Chicago?
Well, that's the point. We met that evening, and Eric Berne made it. He realized that he was meeting with a bunch of social workers who thought that he was supposed to be a psychoanalyst of some sort. And he wasn't interested in the group. He was interested in getting his hotel room paid and what else? And just showing off.
Yeah.
So he just showed off with a group. No, well, before that, he annoyed me. I went to pick him up to meet with us. And I went to the hotel room, knocked on the door, and said, Dr. Berne, it's such an honor to meet with you. And I wanted to continue my little speech. And he said, let's fuck. And I said, what? He was going to show me that he's San Francisco. And he said, let's fuck. And I said, I was a prim Eastern, nothing like that. And I said, but they're waiting for us downstairs. And he said, oh, they can wait for 20 minutes. I said, Dr. Berne, will you please come down with me?
I think we do know that darker side of Eric Berne's personality, indeed.
Yeah.
No, it's not direct.
Yeah.
Fortunately, David Kupfer was around to save TA for you, because
Yeah.
if that had been your only introduction, it doesn't seem like we would have had you in this community.
Yeah.
After that turnoff, how come you were willing to even consider following up with it, Fanita?
Well,
What was it?
the original interest in TA psychotherapy was there. I disliked the man thoroughly.
Mhm.
But what happened was that Kupfer and Goulding were giving a 101 in Chicago, and I was interested in going to that. And Kupfer immediately enchanted me. I liked him very much.
Yeah.
He gave a demonstration group. He confronted me immediately with some junk that I was presenting. And he then told me that they're opening a school, a training center for therapists in San Francisco. There's a school there. And he showed us a very exciting brochure about this school that they were going to open. And I said, I want to sign up. And I signed up for the next semester. So I signed up, I paid the advance fee. I came to California. I was told after I signed up that the first meeting would be in Menlo Park. Well, I didn't know very much about Menlo Park or anything else about California, but all right, I don't mind going. I thought the school was supposed to be in Carmel or what. So I went to the first meeting in Menlo Park, which turned out to be not a meeting, but a marathon with patients. So there again, I was disappointed. But an event happened where Kupfer confronted me about certain points in my background. I realized that this was a great therapist.
I had the same experience with him. We had a group also as part of the 101, a practice group. And there was a chair, and I was supposed to be the therapist, and I didn't take the therapist's chair. And so he confronted me about that, because that was the big revelation for me, that if you want to be an authority, you have to take the therapist chair. But whatever he did was so skillful and so smooth. And he never made people not okay the way he worked. He was a very talented teacher and therapist. And I agree with you that it's very unfortunate that he somehow got lost somewhere along the way and isn't known the way a lot of other practitioners and teachers are known. So, I think it's good that we can acknowledge him right now.
Yeah.
Fanita, what was the main thing that you learned from David?
I don't know. I don't know whether I can say it was contracts, because I'm not sure he used that term. But I did learn from him dealing with reality.
Could you say more about that?
What did I learn from him?
About
Very hard to say. Well, maybe I should tell you how he practiced.
Yes.
The way he practiced is that he had me watch him do therapy. So he didn't tell me any theory of what I'm supposed to learn from him, but I watched him do therapy. And I don't think he used the term contracts, but I believe I saw him do contracts all the time. I think he did something or other. Whatever, as I say, which I now call contracts, and probably not that. And the big thing is he confronted people all the time with what it is that they wanted to deal with, and how they were not agreeing, not admitting that they were talking about what they needed.
Would you say that one of his great gifts was and teachings was to learn how to work in the here and now?
Absolutely.
Because
Very good.
I would think that from your description and my experience, that one of the art of TA practice is that it's in the here and now, and that way you can sort of confront people with their behavior, and everybody in the group can see what they're doing as well at the same time. Because I found that very potent, and it was a little bit scary for me after what I was used to, which is playing archaeology, going back and going over people's history, but not really confronting them with their behavior or what was going on between them and another person.
I aim at confronting the person with their contract over and over and over. And then I may aim at showing the person that perhaps what they call their contract is not their contract, that they're really would rather racketeering and talk about their hard life and have me sympathize with them or understand them. And that I wasn't terribly interested in doing that. And we'd start talking about what I was interested in doing, not what they were interested in doing, but what I was interested in doing. And I was interested in being effective with them and getting to the point of what I could really help them with.
Also, didn't this give you a certain level of creativity and excitement, which would have been missing in your prior practice? Because from your description, there was something by your keeping people their contract that you were staying in the here and now at the same time, but you also had an engagement with them, which could interest and excite you as well and bring out some of your creativity. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, that's very important.
It's very important. Could you say more about that?
Well, in a sense, I'm thinking about the last patient I had. I had to drop him, unfortunately, with all that happened. He was in the process of divorcing his wife. He managed to get to that, or rather, she was divorcing him in a way, and she was setting all kinds of conditions. His father was running the show, really. And the first thing I needed to help him see is the way in which his whole marriage was run by his own father in terms of the kind of husband he was supposed to be. She was taking advantage of him. Now, that's a very funny thing to think of me as a feminist taking the part of the husband and not of the wife. Think about it. And I had to do some negotiating with myself before I could really help him to realize that I was interested in the human being and not whether he was a man or a woman. I learned a lot from working with this patient, by the way.
What did you learn?
Exactly that the focus is on the person and not on is he a man or a woman.
Well, also, I think it's important that you also don't focus on someone's pathology or their clinical diagnosis also, but rather on their humanity and also how they're living and what they want for themselves, which is a contract.
Yes.
So that it's not a clinical analysis of the person's pathology. It's anti-pathology, and that's, would you agree? Would you say something also about having to do with scripts, your view of scripts at all, or anything about that theory?
Yes, I ran script workshops.
Yes.
And I used to specify that script workshops were not therapy workshops. That people might discover working in a script workshop that it may be that they also needed therapy, but they were very different workshops, so the focus was very different. The script workshop focused on identifying the actual script, determining to what extent the actual script was compatible with the person's goal in life.
What I remember when I took the script workshop, I think more than one, was that we had 3 stories. That you asked us to have 3 stories. And what was so striking about it for me was that there was a childhood story, and then there was an adolescent story, and then another story in maturity. And that we looked at scripts as our life stories, but that they were different at different times. Like one might be script, then one might be counter script, in fact, and then another one script again. Could you, do you have anything that you could add to that?
No, you've said it very well.
Oh, thank you.
When you said when you were working with clients and you were trying to create a contract with them.
Yes.
But it was not always successful because they were racketeering.
because they wanted to racketeer.
They wanted to racketeer. So is that how you came up with that theory
Yeah,
of rackets? Yeah, you explained rackets so well.
Yeah.
So
because actually rackets was Berne's word, not mine. But his word was as a way of dismissing what people were doing. As a person would say, I'm so unhappy. And he'd say, oh, that's just a racket,
mhm.
and dismiss it. He identified the racket, but then he didn't do anything with it. I could see the racket, but my question was, why the racket?
Mhm.
When it comes to a gangster, it's in order to get money. Well, when it comes to a patient in therapy, what is the patient trying to get? Well, eventually I come up with the idea it's strokes. So the patient is wanting to be told that he's a good guy who's leading an unhappy life, or a good woman who's leading an unhappy life, and he's entitled to more. But then I became interested in feeling that surely there is more to this person than that. Now, that's what this person ends up expressing that they're looking for. But that's not what they really look for. Quite separately, there's a creative, exciting part of them that's also wanting to express itself. And then I got to my theory of the three drives.
Can you talk a little bit about the three drives? You call them
Yes,
and spunky and sleepy,
yes,
or where did
yes.
you get this
Yes,
idea?
I started with these Disney terms, sleepy, spunky, and survey. But I changed it to something more serious. At first, I started jokingly.
You say more about the drives, if you will, because
Yes, I
yes,
can say about the drives, and I wish I had a thing to draw on, but I can give you the idea. So, Freud would say unconscious, conscious, and ego. Yes, egos.
yeah.
I am doing something else. I'm saying unconscious, domain, conscious, pre-conscious, and superconscious. And in here lies the unconscious and lies the three drives, the three influences that operate inside us, the three drives, the three goddesses that govern our destiny in here. And I talk about them as the three goddesses in our unconscious, which are ruling us all the time. And one of them, and now we're more serious than sleepy, spunky, and survey, one of them is survia, meaning the one who serves our everyday existence, is concerned with our eating, our getting dressed, our being recognized, our, our everyday lives, including pastimes.
Mhm.
So survia is pretty domestic and boring, but very active, concerned with us. The other point, which is really the exciting one, is passia. Passia is short for passionate, and what we care about, what we really care about. And there I draw on what it is that we can get passionate about. And it can be sexuality. That's why both Freud himself got himself to sexuality. But it's more than sexuality, it's passion. Passion is not always sexuality. Passion is something one cares about. It can be like Madame Curie caring about discovering radium. It's not necessarily her sexuality. In fact, she's willing to sacrifice her life for the sake of producing in the area that excites her. But somebody with passion can also be excited for the sake of sex. So it can be a here and now passion, or it can be overall total passion. And then the third is transcia, transcendence, which can be transcendent everyday life, transcending survia, which is everyday life, transcending passia, which is also can be everyday life, but in a very different, exciting way, and transcending herself, being ready to get mystical or sleep, all the way from sleep to mysticism.
So it's our spiritual life as well.
Yes, yes.
So can you
Becoming,
compare,
yeah, very
can you
good.
compare these three to the ego states at all?
Ego states are in the middle, the child, parent, and adult.
Would you say like those are conscious states? The ego states are conscious states, but
Yeah,
the drives are right below them, and they're what drive us
yes,
fundamentally, perhaps.
yes. Very good, very good,
Perhaps
very good.
if we think of it that kind of way. And I was very struck when you were talking about passia, also about creativity as part of passia too.
Oh, yes, very much,
Because
very much so.
you know, when I see, as I know you, when you got out of the doldrums of psychoanalysis into the excitement of TA, your
Yes.
passia suddenly became alive again.
Yeah,
After you were working out of Survia mostly, or escaping through dreams and somewhere else help me with this.
The Quiesa?
Quiesa Drive, yes, yes. So that for you, Fanita, would you say that passia saved you from a dull life? Because
yes,
they,
yes, yes.
and you met somewhere, and the marriage created for you an opportunity to have a life of creativity, because your writing came from your observation, it came from your experiences. But
Yeah.
without passia there, how could that
Yeah.
even happen, really?
Yes.
So
You know, that's great, because you're formulating things for me much better than I do. Congratulations, Marian. You're doing it much better.
It's really nice. Honestly, it's such amazing to hear you both speak, because I am Marian's student. She's training me. I'm a TAP. And then Marian learned so much from you. And so this is just really wonderful.
Well, you got a great trainer. You got a wonderful trainer.
I do.
you can see,
And she's going to inspire you.
I would like to just say that I really enjoy the generational feature of this conversation from living room to living room, which is that you are the source right here for us as well, and that I'm transcribing it, but that Alexis is now carrying this on in her work and her life
The
as well.
torch, the Olympic torch.
Yes.
And you can give Alexis the Olympic torch.
Thank you, Fanita. I appreciate that, just as you have done for me.
Absolutely. That was beautiful. Yes. Fanita, you just received the Fanita English Lifetime Achievement Award, which
oh, yes.
came out last year over Zoom.
Here it is.
That's amazing.
Here it is. I'm very pleased with it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Can you hold it up a little bit? You were the first one to receive it, and now others will.
Yeah, that's what I'm pleased about.
So I'm really glad that you were able then to show it to us.
Did you see it? Yes, were you able to?
Yes, yeah, you don't have to put it back yet. It's something to keep out and really show off. It's something to be really proud of.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we are
so
proud
here it is.
to be able to share this with you, Fanita. A wonderful opportunity for us to have this time together and to really appreciate the life that you've had, which has been so full and so rich. And thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's just been wonderful. And Alexis, you are such a terrific interviewer, and I congratulate you on that as well.
Yes.
About how you were the light that carries us all. So thank you to you as well.
Yeah. Thank you both, and thank you for setting it up. We bounced around various topics,
We did.
like a fly going around one spot to the next. I guess I'm reading Proust now, and he talks about the fly or the butterfly or the bouncing from one
But
spot.
isn't that how living room conversations go? You
Yeah,
know, it doesn't have to be like a presentation.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
truths come out as we talk. And in a way, that's what makes this so delightful, really.
okay.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
we thank each other very much. How do you know?
That was great, Fanita. Do you feel okay?
Everything's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Be well and
Bye-bye.
stay healthy. Bye, Fanita. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.